Hello, good morning, guys. Me again, Forristicat, wanting to talk about Prometheus, which I saw last night. Quick apologies for posting the other two videos. I think Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones eventually went out of sync, so I'm going to re-record them with my better thoughts and repost them up. I think I was recording too much in high definition when I was having a virus scan on the computer, which sort of chugged all the resources. Nevertheless, yesterday, I thought after work, might as well go see Prometheus. I was meaning to see it. Of course, I was always going to see it with the sort of hype surrounding it and the trailer looking fantastic. So I thought, yep, this is definitely, it's a no-brainer. Ridley Scott, what more could you anticipate from? So, Prometheus, what is my initial reaction? Well, my initial reaction is that it is better than what I thought it was going to be. That's because as I looked on imdb.com, I think I mentioned this in the forum, that it got a 7.8 out of 10. That's pretty high. I'm not saying IMDb is the gospel of ratings, but nevertheless, when it's sort of like that, I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be pretty good, but it's never going to be pushing that sort of amazing boundary that much. However, when I did see it, there was there were a lot of, if I could summarize this in one sentence, as much as Prometheus did things right and could have been, epic and could have been that amazing movie, it did a couple of things wrong which automatically detracted from what it did right. So first of all, visually, it's a no-brainer, you guys. Visually, this movie is amazing. All the screens, the technology, just the CGI effects, the animation of that the king at the start, with the pale sort of flesh, the alien reference right at the end. All of this really did help add believability to the world, and that's what Ridley Scott is known for creating sort of very atmospheric movies that sort of suck you in. I think that was achieved with all these little sort of banterings going on between the crew and other crew members. I think that that's what sort of really added sort of like a grounding that hey, this world actually is real. So for example, like in the cockpit, you got like the Asian guy and this other guy sort of like just doing a few jokes here and there. You got Stringer Bell giving sort of orders to the crew and sort of like winking, stuff like that. That's the thing. Like if you do like little simple things like that, it presupposes that the world that you live in is normal, to the point where you're doing these little sort of like quote unquote everyday human things. So that to me really does sort of like sort of calms down the world to the point where this is a normal world for what they live in the future. Therefore, whatever happens that's crazy is coming from that baseline of that normal world that you saw your characters interacting with in a day-to-day sort of way. I hope this is making sense. So anyway, with that as the baseline, the action sequences which actually happened were nuts. I mean, I really didn't think the movie was going to be pushed that far, but it did. There was like I think two women like either side of me at the cinema, and they could not look on the screen. That's how ridiculous that this movie was getting. They were like holding their boyfriends or whatever, going, "Oh my God, this is nuts!" And I was thinking, "Damn, but I was even more wanting to look at the screen, because I knew that it's not every day you see an alien egg explode after it's been removed from a woman's womb and then start attacking a medical chamber and then explode after decontamination." So it was definitely one of those things that they really pushed the action way beyond the point which I thought they would. I mean, the first major action sequence where you've got them going down to the sort of cave where the Prometheus head is, and then like they're sort of testing out the little cubicle eggs and little sort of like urns or whatever, and something bad's going to happen. And that you see that alien sort of cobra looking thing with the that then it sort of like spreads its like a velociraptor, and then it grabs onto the guy's arm, and then the moment where the guy's arm breaks, you know that shit's gonna go down, and so it did. And he's like, get it off me, cut it, and then I don't know why I found it hilarious. It's one of those things is like that she's trying to make it better, so she's cutting off the arm, the alien arm or whatever it is, in order to alleviate this thing that's going on, but it just actually sprays acid everywhere and ends up going into this guy's helmet and then going into his mouth. I mean, that just the amount of panic and that's the thing that this movie did really well. It really created suspense in many scenes. When it was silent, you literally you knew that something was going to happen, and a lot of members in the audience sort of jolted and stuff like that. That's excellent.
Also create a sense of urgency and panic throughout the movie. So those are things it did well. Unfortunately, what all these reviewers are saying is actually true. As much as like it had the potential to sort of really be something special and great, given these, the fiction behind it, like the story set up, there wasn't enough clues. Look, I'm gonna directly quote one of my friends on Facebook. They said something like, good narrative in a mystery sci-fi is where you leave just enough clues for the viewing audience to sort of piece things together in their own pace, so when they do, it all makes sort of sense and it's a satisfying conclusion. What is not a satisfying conclusion is when you open up a couple of different loops, you leave minimal clues there, and little of it gets resolved. And that's sort of what happened with this movie. There were, for example, the scene with what was his name? Not John. The robot guy. How he's like talking to Charlize Theron's character, and then she comes up to him and pushes him up against the wall and says something like what did he say? What did he say? And then it's sort of that sort of I feel like that could have gone into more detail there. Although now that I think about it, I guess that's Guy Pearce's character. He's talking to him from the base. But I don't know. Like I need to digest this movie a little bit more. But overall, it felt like a little bit of spaghetti bolognese in tying up these loose ends and not enough information in there. Another problem I had with it was when what's her name? Elizabeth Scott's character. The scene with her like getting that thing out of her. That's absolutely nuts, man. I never expected to see that. I never thought they would be pushing it that far, and they did. Right after that, you would be so if you were her, you would be so traumatized. You wouldn't want to go anywhere within a million light years of any sort of alien thing that resembles that. Not even a Pikachu doll. If a Pikachu doll resembled an alien, just a little bit, you would not want to go near that after that experience. So what happens? Well, you've got again, I can't forget the synthetic guy, the creepy guy, the sort of quote unquote bad character throughout the movie, saying to her something like, don't you want to, or was it the old guy? Yeah, it was the old guy. Waylon or whatever his name is. He says something like to her, your partner sort of came this far. Don't you want to see who the engineers are? Don't you want to see how this is all going to end? The way I took it is, she would say, nothing is worth my life. I'm out of here. Boom, and somehow she would like take a escape pod and fly far away. But nevertheless, after all that crazy stuff has happened, and she's nearly died and went through such a traumatic experience, she's like, okay, next scene, boom, she's back in there. I don't think that's believable. I don't think that she would actually naturally want to go back there. So that's my take on that. Overall, the action sequences were amazing. Did not expect them to push it that far, but they did. But yeah, there was sort of this sort of. That's the major problem. You got Damon Lindelof co-writing this, which is the master of let's open up all these plot lines a la Lost and let's not resolve them sufficiently, and then when we're asked questions, let's just deflect them and say that's up to the fans to work out when there's actually not enough evidence there anyway. See, Lost was frustrating in that way, that they opened up so many loops, and just when you thought that one loop was going to be resolved, they opened up another loop around that and another loop around that, and they never sort of really resolved anything, and then they were just writing themselves into corners all the time. For example, Walt, they never resolved Walt and why he was showing up to John Locke everywhere, and why Aaron was the little prince, stuff like that. So in a similar way, like there were just there needed to be more sort of like clear resolutions to the mystery of this story without going into too much detail. I don't want to go over time here, but one other point I did want to mention was there were a couple of moments, one in particular where I really thought this movie could have been, I thought, yeah, this movie like has a seed of becoming like a great. And that was when Elizabeth Shaw and her partner are sort of like sitting down in bed. This is after he gives her that rose that's frozen, and he says something like, they had the whole debate of, I think this is in another scene actually, the whole debate of, prolonging life to investigate the mystery of death or where we came from. The sort of idea of, is there a God that created us, or is there some sort of other thing at work here? And in that bedroom scene, it was, like her not having the ability to sort of produce life, but at the same time sort of debating sort of like what's the most important thing, like knowing sort of like where we came from. These themes are excellent. These are excellent ideas for this type of movie. You've got all this crazy alien stuff happening all around you. You've got this beautiful landscapes and sweeping shots that the movie opened with. You've got a fantastic opening sequence with that guy drinking that liquid and then just dying and seeing the DNA strands tear apart. And then you've got these themes of like, life and death, God or no God, creationism versus whatever other form of life may have created us. These are all sort of very excellent themes. Why? Because it grounds us in this reality. These are questions myself have thought about a lot of times. Where have we come from? Is there sort of crazy stuff on a planet, like if you just went a billion light years that way, would we find something like this? Anything that links us emotionally to this reality really does plug into our psyche to the point where the movie experience becomes that much more enjoyable. And that scene there, it sort of had the inkling of sort of like having this sort of like, yep, that's fantastic, but never did really cross that threshold. And I think that's another thing, like some of these scenes just needed time to breathe. I've noticed in many the best movies have those scenes where the director, the writers and stuff, the actors, they're not always on the go. Like you have a scene where you just have two of them talk and you have them have this deep and meaningful conversation, and then later on when you talk about these deep themes and then something happens, it really does create the backdrop for actually moving the plot forward and making the movie epic. So having more of these scenes to breathe, more of these sort of quote-unquote special moments to actually facilitate the sort of lore of the story forward and actually make this movie sort of more epic, more of a masterpiece, you would need to have more scenes like that, sort of like slow, everyday scenes, just having those little conversations a little bit more throughout the movie. Coming up on 16 minutes here, obviously a lot to be said about this movie. Without a doubt, better than anything else you'll see in the cinema for a while. I mean, it's hard to fault, but there was just I can't help but feel like in the back of my head that there's this puzzle pieces here that I'm not even sure if the puzzle pieces are sort of well defined enough to actually slot anywhere. So they sort of have blunt edges and they could sort of go anywhere. And that's a problem, I think. Whenever
the fans sort of have to speculate too much of that's what this means, that's what that means, without being allowed evidence from the writers to go more in one direction than another, then you've got a piece of problem on your hands, because the resolution will never be as fulfilling than if the writers had set it up in a more better way. Of course, regardless of that, the action incredible, the landscapes fantastic, a couple of very powerful unconscious human psyche themes going on there. Prometheus, I would give it about a 7.5 out of 10. Try not to get too excited about it, but yeah, what can I say, guys? Fantastic movie. Was it worth my $11? Damn right it was. Alright guys, Forristicat signing off, and take care.